My name's Adam Reynolds, and after 11 years of running the length of I-40, I thought I'd seen every weird thing a rest area can throw at you. Most nights, these stops are just a place to stretch your legs and grab a few minutes of shut-eye before the next 100-mile push. But one night outside Amarillo changed the way I look at every parking lot, every stranger, and every time I shut my eyes in my cab. It was late January, bitter cold, one of those nights where even the vending machine looks like it's shivering. I'd been driving since sunrise, and after my third cup of gas station coffee, I knew I was done for the night. I pulled into the rest area at mile marker 85, cut the headlights, and found a spot that let me keep the exit in sight. There were a few other trucks, a couple of cars, and a white van that looked like it hadn't moved in days. I texted my wife to say goodnight, double-checked the locks, and settled in to nap. I woke up an hour later to a weird, steady tapping. Not a storm. This was deliberate, like someone knocking, but softer, lower down on the passenger side window. My heart did that sudden jump you only get when you wake up somewhere you're not supposed to be vulnerable. I fumbled for my flashlight and shined it through the window. There's this kid crouched there, early 20s, skinny, with greasy hair plastered to his forehead. He's got this forced smile, like he's trying to look harmless but failing. He says, "Hey man, you got a phone charger?" My phone's dead. His breath is fogging up the glass. Every instinct I've got tells me not to roll the window down. I shake my head and yell back, "Can't help you, man. Battery's dead." He just keeps smiling, eyes too wide. Just for a minute? I'm stranded. My van's out of gas. He nods toward that old white van parked under the light. There's a code out here. Help when you can, but something about him is wrong. I keep my voice flat. Sorry, nothing I can do. He keeps standing there, grinning. Then he says, "Mind if I just sit here a minute?" Before I can say a word, he drops out of sight, squatting by my front wheel, well, just out of view. My pulse is pounding now, and I start to wonder how long I've really been asleep. I check the mirrors. No movement from the other trucks. The white van's still there, and that's when I see another figure, a bigger guy in a hoodie, slip between two cars and start walking right toward my side. I grab the tire iron from under my seat just in case and try to make myself look like I'm not rattled. The new guy walks up, raps on the driver's window with his knuckles, leans in close. "Hey buddy, you got a minute? My friend's in a bind." I keep the window up and stare right back. "Not tonight, man. Just trying to sleep." He leans in harder, pressing his face close enough to fog the glass. "We just need a jump, that's all." His voice is all friendly surface, but there's something flat and rehearsed underneath. I shake my head, firm. "Can't help. Sorry." He doesn't move, just stares a second too long, then walks around the front of the truck, looking up at my wipers, peering in at the dash, like he's shopping. The first guy stands, and now both of them are at my passenger side, faces nearly pressed to the glass. "Come on, man, it's freezing out here. Just let us in to warm up," the skinny one says, voice louder, a little shaky now. I hold up my phone and yell, "I'm calling the cops." That gets a reaction. His smile disappears and the bigger guy's eyes narrow, but they don't back off. "No one's coming," the first guy sneers. "You got no signal here." He's not wrong. My phone's useless. But I snap a photo anyway, more to show them I'm not bluffing. There's a tense pause. The big guy steps back, cracking his knuckles, while the kid leans in, presses his forehead to the glass, and whispers, "You sure you want to make this hard?" That's when the adrenaline really spikes. I start the engine, throw the truck into gear, and lay on the horn. The cab is filled with the blare, echoing off the empty lot, and suddenly lights come on in one of the other trucks across the lot. That does it. They back off, hands up, walking backward, still staring at me. They hustle to the van, get in, and just sit there, engines running, headlights off for what feels like an eternity. My hands are shaking on the wheel. I keep my eyes on my mirrors, every muscle tight, ready for anything. Finally, a cruiser pulls in, state trooper doing his rounds. The van roars to life, peels out, and is gone into the night. The trooper doesn't even stop, just drives a slow loop and keeps going. I sit there, heart pounding, for another hour before I feel safe enough to move. When I finally pull back onto the highway, I keep checking the rearview mirror for that van, even though I know they're long gone. For weeks after, I couldn't shake that feeling, knowing how close it came to going bad, how quickly you go from routine to survival mode. I don't sleep at rest areas anymore, not unless they're busy and bright. Every time I see someone walking the lot, my stomach knots up. I keep thinking about how easy it is to target someone who's tired, alone, and just wants a few minutes of peace. That night wasn't just about two desperate guys looking for a score. It was psychological warfare. They pushed, they tested, they probed for weakness. And the scariest part? If I'd hesitated, rolled down the window, or stepped outside, it would have ended differently. Out here, you can't afford to give anyone an inch. So if you're out there, don't get comfortable. Don't trust a sad story at 2 a.m. Keep your guard up and watch your mirrors, because sometimes the real danger isn't the highway itself, it's who's waiting for you to stop. My name's Chris Dalton, and if you've ever run I-75 through Georgia at night, you already know why truckers call it the nerve. Some stretches are wide open, but then there's this 30-mile ribbon just north of Macon that feels like it was built for accidents. Blind curves, short on-ramps, and woods so thick the darkness feels alive. I thought I'd seen it all after a decade on the road, but there's one night I still can't shake. The night a simple swerve changed my life and almost cost me everything. It started like any other haul. Early summer, sticky heat, bugs plastered across the windshield. I was hauling a load of new furniture from Tampa up to Cincinnati, trying to make good time after a 3-hour backup on the Florida line. Around 2 a.m., I rolled through the outskirts of Macon, radio low, windows cracked to keep me alert. My eyes were dry and itchy, but I kept telling myself I'd stop for coffee at the next real truck stop. Just a few more miles. The highway was dead quiet. Nothing but me, the hum of tires, and the occasional flicker of headlights way behind me. The woods pressed in close on both sides, and every now and then, an animal's eyes would flash in my beams, then vanish. It was hypnotic, just enough monotony to make you start losing your edge. That's the most dangerous time. I was coming up on a long, sweeping left turn when I saw it. A car, halfway in the right lane, flashers on, angled like it had spun out. At first I figured it was a breakdown, but as I slowed down, something felt off. The car's trunk was popped open, but nobody was standing outside. No sign of life, not even movement. Just a blue sedan, hazard lights blinking, trunk gaping into the night. I slowed to a crawl, ready to switch lanes and give it a wide berth, but there was a concrete barrier on the left. Nowhere to go but past the car, close. My heart picked up, instincts firing. I switched the cab lights on, reached for the air horn just in case. That's when I saw her. A woman, maybe mid-30s, barefoot and running straight for the cab, waving her arms like she was on fire. She came from behind the car, straight out of the tree line. She was yelling something I couldn't make out, but her face was pure panic. I stopped just short of the sedan, left the truck running, and cracked the window. She was sobbing, voice hoarse. "You have to help me. Please, they're coming. They're..." Suddenly, her eyes darted back toward the woods. She screamed, ducked, and crawled under the trailer, pressing herself up against the axles. Now my heart was hammering. I grabbed my flashlight, ready to jump out and help her, but something in me said, "Wait." I checked my mirrors, the road behind me empty but for the distant glow of approaching headlights. And then I saw movement at the edge of the woods. 3 men emerged, fast and low, all dressed in black. They split up. One circled toward my driver's side, another headed for the passenger. The third moved toward the back where the woman hid. One of them pulled something from his jacket. Could have been a tire iron. Could have been worse. Every horror story you've ever heard as a driver flashed through my head. Fake breakdowns, staged accidents, thieves and worse. My hands were slick on the wheel, adrenaline spiking so hard my vision tunneled. But I didn't freeze. I leaned on the horn, a deep, angry blast that filled the night. The men froze for a second, then the closest one started yelling, "Mind your business, drive on!" But I wasn't going anywhere. I shouted down to the woman, "Get in the cab!" Now, and slammed the passenger door open. She bolted from beneath the trailer, dove into the seat, slammed the door, and locked it. Her hands were bleeding, knuckles raw. The men hesitated, maybe realizing things hadn't gone to plan. I threw the truck into gear, floored it, and jerked the wheel to avoid the sedan. The rig rocked hard, tires screaming as I clipped the edge of the concrete barrier. The sedan's rearview mirror scraped down my trailer, showering sparks, but I kept going, muscles locked, eyes glued to the mirror. The men chased for a second, then stopped as I hit the highway. In the side mirror, I watched them scramble into the woods, vanishing as quickly as they'd appeared. The blue sedan sat empty, hazard lights still blinking, looking harmless as a toy left in the road. For the next 10 miles, neither of us said a word. The woman was shaking so hard the seatbelt rattled against her jacket. I kept my eyes on the road, but my mind was reeling. What if I'd stopped in a different spot? What if I'd gotten out? What if she hadn't run at exactly that moment? Finally, at the next well-lit truck stop, I pulled off. The woman was still crying, still hugging herself, but she managed to whisper, "Thank you. I thought they were going to kill me." I handed her my phone, told her to call the cops. She did, voice shaking as she gave her name, Rachel Torres, and explained that she'd been forced off the road by the men, who then tried to rob her. When she ran, they chased her into the woods, leaving the car to stage their next accident. Within minutes, state troopers arrived. I gave my statement, shaking as I replayed every second, every decision. Rachel was taken to a hospital, cuts, bruises, but alive. The cops told me I'd likely interrupted a string of robberies that had been targeting single drivers on that stretch for months. That night, I barely slept. Every sound outside the cab made me flinch. Every shadow looked like someone creeping up. My hands shook for days afterward. For weeks I kept reliving that decision, the swerve, the moment I could have frozen up or bolted or gotten out of the cab and walked right into their trap. I thought about how easy it is to get comfortable, to think you're safe just because the road is empty and the night is quiet. Now every time I hit a dark curve or see a car sitting funny on the shoulder, I remember that night. The fear, the choice, the feeling that danger isn't always obvious. It waits for you to relax. You think you know how you'll react, but until the moment comes, you don't know anything. If you're listening and you've got a story, share it. These highways are full of ghosts and survivors, and the more we talk, the harder it is for anyone to pick us off alone. And if you ever see someone running for your cab in the dead of night, trust your gut. But don't forget. Sometimes the swerve is what saves you, even if it leaves a scar you'll never quite outrun. They say routine is what keeps you alive on the road, but sometimes it's exactly what puts you in the crosshairs. I learned that the hard way on a Wednesday morning outside Flagstaff, when I broke my own rule. Never, ever let a stranger into your cab. It was just after sunrise, gold light spilling over the pine trees, everything cold and sharp and quiet. I was parked at a tiny truck stop, topping off my thermos with burnt coffee, half listening to some guy in the booth behind me ranting about diesel prices. I wasn't in any hurry. My name's Nick Evans. I run the overnight from Albuquerque to Bakersfield every week, and after 15 years I can do it with my eyes closed. But I was ahead of schedule for once, so I lingered, checking messages, scrolling headlines, convincing myself to enjoy the calm before another empty stretch of I-40. That's when she showed up. A woman in her 20s, dusty backpack, hair tied back with a rubber band, wearing a faded Colorado Rockies hoodie. She looked tired, not scared, but tense in a way that made you pay attention. She made a beeline straight to my table, voice low but direct. "Excuse me, sir. I need to get as far west as you'll take me. I'm not a threat. I can't stay here anymore." I should have said no. I always say no. But something about her, honest, desperate, but not strung out, made me hesitate. She looked over her shoulder twice like she expected someone to come bursting in after her. "Please, I'll stay quiet. I just need to get out of Arizona." Part of me knew it was trouble, but another part remembered 1,000 lonely nights and the people who've helped me out of a jam. I nodded, mostly out of habit, and told her she could ride to Kingman, no farther. She thanked me, shouldered her bag, and followed me out. We drove for about an hour in near silence. I tried to make small talk, but she kept her eyes on the road, fingers tapping out a nervous rhythm on the armrest. Eventually, I asked if she was running from someone or just running. She flinched, then looked straight at me. Both. Her name was Jamie. She'd come down from Denver looking for work, got mixed up with the wrong people, and barely made it out of a house party when things turned ugly. She'd been hiding out at the truck stop since midnight, waiting for someone who looked like they'd listen more than they'd talk. She pulled her sleeves up. Her arms were covered in bruises, some old, some fresh. "I know what you're thinking," she said quietly. "But I'm not a thief. I'm just tired of being scared." I believed her, but I was still on edge. My mirrors kept pulling my attention. A black pickup had followed us out of the truck stop and stayed a few car lengths behind, never passing, never falling back. Jamie saw it too. "That's them," she whispered, voice shaking for the first time. I hit the next exit, cutting down a narrow service road through the pines. The truck followed, headlights off. Now my heart was hammering. I tried to play it cool, turned on the radio, started talking about nothing, anything, hoping to buy us some time to think. Jamie dug through her bag, pulled out an old flip phone. "They're tracking me. I don't know how, but they always find me." Her hand shook as she snapped the battery out and tossed it out the window. The truck behind us sped up, got close enough that I could see the driver. A guy in sunglasses and a camo hat, stone-faced, focused. There were 2 more people in the cab with him. We hit a stretch where the trees cleared and the road widened. I told Jamie to get down, grabbed my CB and called out on every channel. "This is Nick on 40 westbound. Got a black Dodge tailgating. Looks like trouble. Anybody close?" Static. Silence. Then finally a voice. 10-4, Nick. I see you. Keep it steady." In my mirror, a red Peterbilt appeared, barreling up behind the Dodge, air horn blasting. The pickup swerved, hesitated, then pulled off onto the shoulder and vanished into the trees. I didn't let up until we were back on the highway, 3 trucks now in a loose convoy. Jamie still curled up tight in the passenger seat, eyes closed but wide awake. The other drivers never asked questions, never said another word, but they stayed with us all the way to Kingman. When we finally pulled off, Jamie sat up, rubbing her face, trying not to cry. She thanked me, voice hoarse, and said she'd find her own way from there. Before she left, she pressed something into my hand, a small silver pendant, tarnished and warm. Thank you for not asking questions. Most people wouldn't have stopped. Most people never look twice. I watched her walk away, backpack bouncing, head down but shoulders squared, and I realized how thin the line is between safety and disaster. If I'd hesitated, if I'd turned her down, if that other trucker hadn't answered the radio, who knows how it would have ended. That morning changed the way I see every stranger at every stop. Not everyone's a threat, but not everyone's just passing through either. Sometimes people really are running for their lives, and sometimes the only thing standing between them and whatever's chasing is a guy who didn't ask too many questions. I don't know what happened to Jamie. I don't know if she ever made it home, or if she ever found what she was looking for out west. But every time I see that pendant on my dashboard, I remember what it cost her just to ask for help, and what it almost cost me to say yes. So if you're out there, rolling west as the sun comes up and some lost soul flags you down, trust your gut, but remember, sometimes you're not just giving a ride. Sometimes you're the only lifeline a person's got left, and that's the kind of choice that sticks with you long after the road disappears in your mirrors. You ever notice how certain stretches of highway have their own mood, their own tension? Some roads make you feel invisible, just another set of headlights in the stream. Others, they make you feel like you're the only thing moving for miles, and every set of eyes in the dark is fixed on you. That's how I always felt about the stretch of US 61 between Vicksburg and Natchez. I used to think it was just the emptiness, the way the trees pressed close and the fog hung low. Now, I know better. I'm Rachel Hudson. Been driving for 9 years, mostly long haul down south. I've hauled everything: produce, building materials, carnival rides. I used to think the only thing you really had to watch for out here was drunks, deer, and the occasional pothole that could rip your suspension clean off. That was before last spring, before the night I realized there are some people who aren't just passing through. They're out there, and they're watching. It was April, wet, sticky, and warm enough to make the air inside the cab feel thick. I'd started in Baton Rouge before dawn, hoping to make it to Memphis before sunrise, but the hours slipped by faster than I expected. By the time I crossed into Mississippi, the sky was pitch black, no moon, just the steady pulse of the dash lights and the dull ache behind my eyes. That's when my fuel gauge reminded me I wasn't going to make it to the next big truck stop. I'd have to settle for whatever came up first. Exit 112. Just a green sign on the shoulder promising food, fuel, lodging. I flicked on my turn signal and eased off, tires crunching onto the ramp. There was a faded gas station with 2 ancient pumps, an empty lot, and a diner that looked like it hadn't seen a customer since the Reagan administration. The place was lit up, but the windows were dark, the open sign flickering like a dying firefly. As I pulled up to the pump, a black pickup drifted in from the far end of the lot and parked at the edge of the light, engine still running. I thought nothing of it. People sleep in their trucks all the time. I got out, locked the cab, and started fueling up. There's a kind of silence you only get late at night, somewhere far from everything. I could hear my own breathing, the hiss of the pump, the soft whine of insects crowding the lights overhead. When I looked up, I realized the guy in the pickup was staring at me. He didn't move, didn't even seem to blink. Just watched, hands on the steering wheel, face half hidden in shadow. I told myself I was being paranoid, that maybe he was just tired or waiting for someone inside. I finished fueling, went in to pay, and bought a cup of coffee so bitter I couldn't tell if it was fresh or leftover from last week. The cashier, an older woman with tired eyes, kept glancing over my shoulder. When I handed her a 20, she leaned in and whispered, "You should get moving, honey. Don't linger around here tonight." Now my radar was up. "Why?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She just shook her head, eyes darting toward the parking lot. "Some folks hang around here after dark. Best not to give them a reason to pay attention." I took my coffee, thanked her, and walked out, heart pounding in my chest. The pickup was still there. Another car had joined it, an old dented sedan, headlights off, just idling at the edge of the lot. A man and a woman sat inside, neither looking at me, both looking straight ahead. I moved quick, glancing at the darkened windows of the diner. The open sign buzzed, but no one was inside. I got back to my rig, locked up, and took a deep breath before starting the engine. The black pickup rolled forward, creeping toward the exit, but stopped before pulling out onto the highway. The sedan did the same, blocking the other end of the lot. That's when I realized what was happening. They weren't waiting for anyone. They were waiting for me. I tried to play it cool, put the truck in gear, rolled forward at a crawl. The pickup pulled onto the ramp, matching my speed, never letting me get ahead. The sedan slid in behind, trapping me in the middle. My pulse thundered in my ears. I checked my mirrors, every instinct screaming, "Don't stop, don't show fear." For the next 5 miles, we crawled up US 61, 3 vehicles locked in a slow, silent convoy. No other cars, no exits. Just headlights in my mirrors and taillights in front, both too close, both refusing to let me break away. I tried everything. Slowing down, speeding up, signaling like I was about to pull over. Nothing worked. They matched me, inch for inch, mile for mile. That's when the mind game started. The pickup would speed up, slam on the brakes, then swerve back and forth in its lane. The sedan behind flashed its brights, over and over, until I could barely see the dash. I flicked on my CB, voice shaking as I called out, "Any trucks on 61 northbound?" Got a couple tailing me, acting strange. At first, just static. Then a gravelly voice. "Keep it steady, Rachel. We're rolling south, mile marker 129. Won't be long." Those next 10 minutes felt like a lifetime. The pickup tried to force me onto the shoulder, edging closer, nudging me toward the ditch. I held my line, refusing to give an inch. The sedan behind swerved, blocking both lanes whenever I so much as twitched the wheel. Finally, in the distance, I saw lights. 2 big rigs coming south, high beams blazing. The pickup in front of me slammed on its brakes, peeling off down a side road. The sedan behind floored it, racing past, disappearing into the trees. I pulled over, shaking, breath ragged, hands numb. The 2 trucks slowed, flashing their lights, and one of the drivers called out over the CB, "You all right, Rachel?" I forced myself to answer, "Yeah, just needed a minute." That night, I didn't sleep. I drove straight through to Memphis, every mile feeling like I was being hunted. For weeks, I kept looking over my shoulder, checking my mirrors, jumping at shadows in parking lots. The feeling never really went away. You spend enough time on the road and you learn the difference between an accident and a setup, between a stranger and a predator. Some people just want to scare you. Others want something more. I don't know what those people wanted that night, but I know I wasn't the first person they tried it with, and I probably won't be the last. If you ever find yourself at some lonely exit in the middle of nowhere, pay attention to your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. And don't be afraid to reach out for help, even if it's just a voice on the radio. Out here, the only thing scarier than being watched is being alone. If you've ever had someone tail you, box you in, or just stare a little too long at a lonely rest stop, you know what I'm talking about. Share your story. Don't let them win by making us all feel like we have to keep our heads down and stay silent. We look out for each other, even when the highway feels endless and empty. And if you see a rig with a pink dream catcher hanging from the rear view, that's me. Flash your lights and say hi. We're stronger together out here, even when the only thing in your rear view is the night itself. There's this idea that daylight keeps you safe, that all the weird, dangerous stuff on the road only happens at night, when the shadows stretch long and the headlights play tricks on your mind. I believed that too, until last summer. Until the day I found out you can be surrounded by people, the sun blazing overhead, and still end up alone, completely at someone else's mercy. I'm Mark Bennett. I haul fresh produce out of California, run all the way to Illinois, and then double back, week in, week out. Most of my runs are just white noise and weather reports. But every now and then, you get a stretch that punches a hole right through your routine. For me, that stretch was Highway 54, cutting through the Oklahoma Panhandle. Flat, endless, and, on that day, full of trucks. It was mid-July. I was running late because a tire blew outside of Liberal, Kansas, so by the time I hit the Oklahoma line, the sun was already dropping low. There's nothing out there, just wind, wheat fields, and maybe a distant barn or two. The CB was mostly quiet, save for the occasional weather warning and bored chatter from a couple of grain haulers. I fell in with a convoy of 4 other trucks, all heading east. None of us knew each other. But it's a comfort thing. Trucks stick together when the miles are long and the road is empty. We ran tight for an hour. The lead rig, a blue Kenworth with a big eagle decal on the back, called out all the bumps and speed traps, and I tossed jokes into the mix, trying to keep myself awake. Sun still shining. Nothing unusual, just the easy camaraderie you get when everyone's trying to make good time and nobody's looking for trouble. Somewhere past Hooker, we hit roadwork, one of those stretches where they drop the lanes to a crawl, single file, cones and barricades everywhere. The sun was going down fast, turning the sky orange and purple, and the wind started picking up, kicking dust across the highway. That's when the weirdness started. First, the lead truck slowed down, way more than the signs called for. Blue Kenworth dropped to 25, then 15, until we were basically crawling. "Got a problem up there?" I called out. "Static." No answer, just the hiss of open air. Then the second truck, a red Peterbilt, clean and shiny, not a mark on it, pulled off onto the shoulder without warning. No signal, no call on the radio, just veered off and stopped. I watched in the mirror as the other 2 trucks slowed down, then stopped behind him. No one got out. No doors opened. I called out again, louder this time. "Everything all right back there?" Still nothing. Now I was alone at the front of the line. The sun had almost set. I glanced at my fuel gauge, still plenty left, and debated pulling over, but something about the scene behind me just felt wrong. 4 trucks, all sitting silent, engines running, nobody moving. So I did what every old-timer tells you never to do. I kept going, alone, out past the roadwork and into a stretch of highway where the only light was my own headlights. I turned the CB down low, tried to shake off the unease, but my mind was racing. Maybe I'd missed a signal. Maybe something mechanical. Maybe they all knew each other and were waiting for someone to catch up. Still, Something in my gut twisted tighter with every mile. 10 minutes later, I passed a wide pull-off where trucks sometimes sleep. No one there. In the mirror, nothing but empty road. I felt silly, like I'd let a little radio silence and some odd driving spook me. That's when the messages started. My phone lit up with a text, no caller ID. "You left the pack." A second later, "Not smart." My stomach dropped. I checked my mirrors. Nothing. The road was dead. I tossed the phone onto the dash, hands sweaty, trying to convince myself it was just a prank. But then the phone buzzed again. Another text. "Should have stayed with the group." I killed the lights, eased off the throttle, and coasted for a half mile, hoping whoever it was would pass me or show themselves. Nothing. Just the sound of the wind and my own heart thumping against the steering wheel. I tried the CB again, but it was just static. No familiar voices, no jokes, nothing but white noise. I called out, "This is Mark, eastbound on 54. Anybody out here?" Silence. Then, as if on cue, the radio crackled, and a voice I didn't recognize said, "Keep driving, Mark. Don't look back." The next few miles were the longest of my life. I kept expecting to see headlights behind me, or a rig come up out of the darkness, but the highway stayed empty. Every time I passed a crossroad, I caught glimpses of trucks sitting in the distance. Just silhouettes, nothing moving, always just out of reach. I finally hit Gaimon, pulled off at the first truck stop I found, and parked under the brightest lights. Inside, my hands shook so bad I could barely pay for my coffee. I sat there for an hour, staring at the texts, the CB, the empty parking lot. Not one of the trucks from the convoy pulled in that night. Not one. That night, I kept the curtains drawn and the doors locked. Every time an engine idled nearby, I tensed up, waiting for someone to bang on the door or for that same voice to come crackling through the CB. Nothing happened. By sunrise, I'd convinced myself it was a weird prank, maybe some local kids with a scanner and too much time. But a week later, at a fuel stop in Missouri, I ran into a driver who recognized my rig. "You Bennett? From 54 last week?" I nodded, heart in my throat. He leaned in, voice low. "You ever hear what happened to the rest of that convoy?" I shook my head. All 3 rigs vanished that night, didn't show at their stops, never checked in with dispatch. Cops found the Kenworth abandoned, keys in the ignition, engine running. Other trucks never showed up at all. He shrugged, like it was just another strange highway story. But I could see it in his eyes. He was scared. So was I. Some roads don't want company. Some convoys aren't looking to help you. They're looking to keep you. That stretch of 54 still looks empty in the daylight, but I'll never drive it the same way again. Every time I see a group of trucks slow down for no reason or a radio go silent, I check my mirrors and trust my gut. If it feels wrong, it probably is. So next time you're running with a group and you start to feel the air change, or you catch a message on the CB that doesn't fit, don't ignore it. Pull off, call someone, get clear. Daylight won't save you if the wrong people want you gone. And if you ever see a blue Kenworth with an eagle decal just sitting by the side of the road, keep going. Some convoys aren't meant for anyone to join, and some, once you're in, you might never get out. If you've got a story from the road, or a close call you can't forget, share it in the comments. You never know who it might help. And if you want more stories like these, hit subscribe and join the community. Out here, we watch each other's backs, even when the road gets dark. Drive safe.